0 seconds. The Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale ends at Category 5, sustained winds of 157 miles per hour or higher. No storm has ever needed a higher category. This one does. They're calling it Category 6. The hurricane making landfall right now has sustained winds of 200 miles per hour. For context, Hurricane Katrina, the storm that flooded New Orleans and killed over 1,800 people, made landfall in Louisiana at around 125 miles per hour. Andrew, which flattened Homestead, Florida in 1992 and was considered one of the most destructive hurricanes in American history, hit at 165 miles per hour. This storm is 35 miles per hour stronger than Andrew and 75 miles per hour stronger than Katrina at landfall. Atlantic Ocean temperatures have been breaking records for the past several years. Water warm enough and warm deep enough below the surface to fuel a hurricane far beyond what the scale was designed to measure. This storm crossed 192 miles per hour over open water and kept intensifying. The eastern eyewall is hitting Miami Beach right now. 1 second later. The first 200 miles per hour winds don't merely damage the beachfront, they begin physically dismantling it. The Art Deco hotels lining Ocean Drive, most of them built in the 1930s and 1940s, beautiful and well-maintained, were not engineered for this. Roofs lift from smaller hotels, restaurants, and beachfront buildings along Ocean Drive within the first second of eyewall contact. Once windows and doors fail, wind enters the structures and begins forcing walls outward from the inside. Sections of lifeguard facilities tear apart. Balconies, awnings, and rooftop equipment rip free and become airborne. Flying debris punches through neighboring facades and starts a chain of structural failures down the street. The air is white. Not rain exactly, a mix of horizontal rain, saltwater spray blasted off the Atlantic, and sand from the beach moving at wind speed. Visibility from inside any window on the east side of the street drops to near 0 instantly. A handful of surfers who went out before conditions made it clearly impossible are in the water when the eyewall hits. The currents are pulling them north along the coast at a rate that makes swimming irrelevant. People watching from hotel windows lose sight of them within seconds. The ocean has them. 5 seconds later. South Beach begins collapsing block by block. Large debris from the first seconds strikes buildings that initially survived. Older roofs detach completely. Internal pressure tears weakened walls from their frames. Several restaurants and lightweight clubs near the beach are completely destroyed. Not damaged, gone. Art Deco buildings along Ocean Drive lose roofs, facades, balconies, and exterior staircases. Upper sections of older hotels partially collapse into the streets, burying parked vehicles beneath masonry and roofing material. There's no safe place to be outdoors. Some nightclubs on South Beach had been sheltering their patrons inside since the mandatory evacuation order came through hours earlier. Legally, they were closed. In practice, they were full of people who had nowhere better to go and were riding it out with music and backup power. The windowless interior hides how bad it has gotten outside. Then part of the roof begins lifting. Water and debris force their way through the entrance. Patrons push toward interior corridors as ceiling sections and lighting rigs come down. They don't know yet that the dining room next to them has been torn completely open. 10 seconds later, eyewall reaches Key Biscayne, and the island loses its escape route simultaneously with its buildings. The Rickenbacker Causeway, the only road connecting Key Biscayne to the mainland, has been under emergency closure since early in the day. The people who didn't evacuate before the closure are still on the island. Waves are crossing the low sections of the causeway entirely. Crandon Park facilities are being torn apart by wind and water. Beachfront houses are losing roofs before surge even enters their lower floors. Some weaker low-rise structures are collapsing outright. Large yachts, roof sections, and pieces of homes are becoming airborne debris in the same airspace. People who delayed evacuation and tried to drive the causeway found it impassable. Some abandoned their cars and tried to cross on foot. The open causeway exposed them directly to 200 miles per hour wind. Residents in the taller buildings are climbing stairwells, watching nearby houses disintegrate through whatever windows haven't blown out yet. 30 seconds later. Storm surge is entering Biscayne Bay. The bay's geometry makes it a trap. It sits between Miami Beach and the mainland, oriented north-south, with the storm pushing water westward off the Atlantic through every channel between the barrier islands. As the surge fills the bay, the mainland stops it from draining. The water level is rising faster than anything the bay has experienced in modern recorded history. Marinas along the Coconut Grove waterfront are taking surge head-on. Yachts that cost more than most houses are riding water levels that have already swamped the dock structures. Mooring lines are holding until they aren't. Boat owners who stayed aboard are realizing that the decision made watching a weather app looks nothing like the reality of the bay trying to swallow the dock beneath them. Port Miami's terminals, cranes, and access roads are being hit directly from the exposed eastern side. The cruise ships were moved days ago. Everything else, infrastructure, equipment, the terminal buildings themselves, is taking the storm without anything in the way. 1 minute later, Miami Beach is flooding from both sides at once. Ocean water is coming over the Atlantic-facing beaches from the east. Bay water is rising on the western side. The drainage pumps Miami Beach installed at enormous cost. Over $600 million in climate adaptation infrastructure are losing power as electrical systems fail. The pumps still running can't move water fast enough to matter at this surge level. Hotel lobbies on Ocean Drive and Collins Avenue go from dry to knee-deep in minutes. Underground parking garages fill from the bottom up. Tourists who move to upper floors believing the towers were completely safe are discovering that the ground floor generators, with the ones that would keep elevators running and water pumping, are underwater. The elevators stop, the water keeps rising. They're in the dark on upper floors with no power, no running water, and no way down that isn't flooded. The causeways to the mainland are impassable. Miami Beach is an island. 5 minutes later, the eyewall reaches Brickell, and the modern skyline begins losing pieces of itself. The Brickell skyline, the dense cluster of glass and steel towers that has made Miami one of the fastest-growing financial districts in the country, is taking 200 miles per hour winds directly. The towers sway under sustained loads beyond the design conditions of many older structures. Repeated debris impacts break glazing and facade systems across exposed floors. Once large openings form, wind pressure invades multiple floors simultaneously and increases interior pressure, which pushes outward against whatever walls and panels are left. Large sections of curtain wall tear away from exposed towers. Dozens of offices and apartments are opened directly to the eyewall. Furniture, glass, ceiling panels, and interior walls are pulled into the streets 50 floors below. A construction crane collapses onto a parking podium and the neighboring facade. Mechanical equipment tears from rooftops and becomes projectiles. An older waterfront tower suffers a serious partial collapse across several damaged floors. Not a full collapse, but entire floor sections folding, the kind of failure that gets a building condemned for years. Brickell Avenue below is a river carrying debris from Miami Beach and the bay. The towers are standing. Some of them are becoming hollow, unstable shells. 20 minutes later, the eye passes over Miami. The winds drop. Not gradually, and within a few minutes, the transition from 200 miles per hour to near calm is almost complete. People inside stairwells, interior bathrooms, wherever they found to ride out the eastern eyewall, feel the pressure change and hear the wind stop. Some of them go outside. The eye of a major hurricane is disorienting in a specific way. The destruction in every direction is lit by actual sunlight. The air is still, and the instinct to move, to check on people, to try to reach family is overwhelming. What they see when they step out is not the Miami they knew. Ocean Drive is buried beneath roofs, walls, sand, and wrecked vehicles. Entire blocks of smaller buildings have been reduced to debris. Several South Beach hotels are partially collapsed. The partially failed waterfront tower in Brickell is visible from the street, its damaged floors exposed. The western eyewall is 20 to 30 miles wide and moving toward them. They have between 20 and 40 minutes. Not all of them know that. 45 minutes later, the western eyewall hits from the opposite direction and finishes what the first pass started. Buildings opened by the eastern eyewall rapidly pressurize from the new direction. Roofs, walls, and facades that barely survived begin failing completely. Entire roof assemblies tear from damaged hotels. Upper floors of several older South Beach buildings collapse into streets already buried in debris from the first pass. Exposed interior walls inside Brickell towers rip away. The already damaged waterfront high-rise suffers further progressive collapse. A damaged crane section falls onto another building. The people who went outside during the eye and didn't make it back to shelter in time are in this. The storm surge that the eastern eyewall pushed into Biscayne Bay hasn't drained. The western eyewall adds to it, pushing water further into low-lying neighborhoods west of the bay: Little Havana, Overtown, Liberty City. These are not waterfront neighborhoods. They don't flood in normal hurricanes, but they're flooding now. 2 hours later. Miami International Airport is not just closed. Large sections of it are destroyed. Several aircraft hangars have partially or completely collapsed. Hangar roofs and doors have been carried across the airfield. Jet bridges are twisted or torn from terminal buildings. Sections of terminal roofing and facade glazing have failed. Lightweight service buildings are gone. Ground vehicles, fuel equipment, and maintenance machinery have been thrown across ramps. Debris covers the runways. Essential workers sheltering in hardened interior rooms survived. The airport itself did not. Even after the hurricane leaves, Miami has no immediately usable gateway for large-scale outside rescue. Everything that needs to come in or go out is moving by road or boat into a city where most roads are buried and the bay is full of debris. 3 hours later. The greatest concentration of complete destruction is not in Brickell. It's in the neighborhoods nobody is filming. The eyewall crossed northern and western Miami-Dade. The areas of wood frame houses, older apartment blocks, strip malls, warehouses, and manufactured homes that make up the majority of the city's actual residential fabric. Entire blocks of wood frame homes are reduced to foundations and scattered debris. Manufactured and mobile homes are almost completely destroyed. Roofs detach with their supporting trusses. Outer walls collapse after the houses are opened to the wind. Strip malls lose roofs and storefront walls. Warehouses fold inward. Hard Rock Stadium, where some people sheltered, is still standing, but large sections of its roof system and exterior envelope have been damaged or torn away. The parking areas are flooded and full of debris. Families who sheltered in interior bathrooms felt the roof disappear above them. People are crawling from collapsed homes into streets full of nails, wires, timber, and glass. Residents trapped inside damaged apartments are signaling through missing walls. In some neighborhoods, there is no neighboring building to move to. They're all down. 12 hours later, the heat arrives. Miami in hurricane season runs in the low to mid-90s. With no power, no air conditioning, and no way to open windows safely in a building still full of debris and contaminated floodwater, the temperature inside the towers on Miami Beach begins climbing. The people on upper floors are in a sealed environment that the sun is heating from the outside. By afternoon, interior temperatures in the most exposed buildings reach over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Heat exhaustion comes before heat stroke, and heat stroke comes quickly in those conditions. The elderly, the very young, anyone with a medical condition that affects thermoregulation. They're the first to be in serious trouble. The stairwells are the coolest places in the buildings, and that's where people are gathering, sitting on the concrete steps, waiting for water that isn't coming. 1 day later, rescue is moving through both deep water and widespread structural collapse simultaneously. The wind has weakened enough for operations to begin. Major roads are blocked by floodwater, roofs, walls, trees, and overturned vehicles. Thousands remain trapped inside damaged towers, collapsed homes, hotels, and apartment buildings. Boats are moving between Brickell towers while firefighters climb damaged stairwells. Urban rescue teams are going floor by floor through older apartment buildings with missing walls and floors. Entire residential blocks must be searched foundation by foundation. The Florida Keys are a separate disaster. The overseas highway took surge from both the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico simultaneously. Sections are underwater, several bridges have structural damage. The 80,000 people in the Keys are waiting on islands with damaged infrastructure and a broken highway as their only connection to the mainland. Key West took a significant but survivable hit. The city has experience with storms, and its older construction was built with some hurricane awareness. Duval Street is flooded. The damage is severe, but people are mostly alive, and they're beginning the process of figuring out what they have and how long it needs to last. 3 days later, floodwater is sitting in Miami's lowest neighborhoods and not leaving. The drainage systems are partially blocked. Debris, sediment, structural damage to underground infrastructure. Some areas are draining slowly, some aren't draining at all because the pipes are broken. The water sitting in streets for 2 days in Miami's heat is mixing with sewage from broken lines, fuel from damaged vehicles and tanks, chemicals from industrial areas. It is not something to wade through without protection. It carries bacteria that cause serious infections through even minor cuts on skin. It carries chemical contamination. It smells because of what's in it, in ways that make clear what it's mixed with. The people still trapped in ground floors, the ones who couldn't get upstairs before the water came in, have been in this for 2 days. Across the residential zones of Miami-Dade that the eyewall flattened, the situation is different. There's no floodwater problem because there are no buildings left to flood. Rescue teams searching these areas aren't looking for people trapped in upper floors. They're searching debris fields where street layouts are no longer recognizable. 1 week later, South Florida has not moved into ordinary cleanup. Search operations are still running inside collapsed buildings. Many streets remain buried beneath structural debris. Large districts lack electricity, water, sewage, and vehicle access. Thousands of buildings are classified as destroyed rather than damaged, a distinction that matters because damaged buildings get repaired and destroyed ones get demolished. Entire residential neighborhoods remain closed behind checkpoints. Demolition crews are stabilizing partially collapsed towers and hotels. Heavy machinery is removing roofs and walls from major roads just to make them passable. Miami Beach contains blocks where nearly every low-rise structure requires demolition. The mold problem in the towers that are structurally intact is becoming visible. Without functioning air conditioning and dehumidification, mold established itself in wet walls and ceilings within days of the storm. Buildings that appear fine from the street are being condemned for months. Residents allowed back in briefly to collect documents and medicine find walls black with it. Some refuse to leave the condemned buildings because the shelters are full. The power is back in some neighborhoods. In the areas where substations spent 2 days underwater, the equipment needs full replacement. The lead time on major grid components is months. 2 weeks later, hundreds of thousands of people have nowhere to return to, not because their buildings are damaged, but because their buildings no longer exist. The displacement from this storm is categorically different from previous hurricanes because a significant portion of the residential housing stock in Miami-Dade was physically destroyed, not flooded. Flooded homes get gutted and rebuilt, collapsed homes get demolished. The lots where they stood are empty. Residents of those neighborhoods are not waiting for a repair timeline. They're looking at years. Rents in undamaged parts of Florida have spiked. The people who can afford it have found something. The people who can't are in shelters that have been running for 2 weeks. Cots, shared bathrooms, the same clothes. When a weaker tropical system develops in the Atlantic and starts tracking toward Florida, the response in the shelter system is immediate panic. The damaged drainage, the missing roofs, the temporary flood barriers around critical infrastructure. None of it can handle another storm of any significant size, and everyone knows it. Some people leave Florida entirely rather than face another evacuation. Others refuse to move again after losing everything. Both reactions are understandable, but neither solves the problem. 1 month later, Miami is functioning, but among ruins. Brickell has power in most towers, water in most buildings above the ground floors, and enough of a street network clear to move through. But the skyline lights unevenly. Illuminated towers beside dark concrete shells, where facades were stripped to the frame. An older waterfront high-rise remains fenced off behind cranes, its partial collapse still being stabilized. Several damaged hotels are awaiting demolition rather than repair. Miami Beach is not what it was. Ocean Drive is still lined with collapsed facades and empty building shells. The most damaged hotels are closed behind fencing, with reconstruction timelines measured in years. The neighborhoods furthest south, which took the surge worst, are still not fully accessible to residents. Across the residential zones of northern and western Miami-Dade, the work is different. It's not renovation. It's bulldozers clearing entire former neighborhoods down to foundations. The debris removal is measured in months. Some of those foundations will have new houses on them eventually. The Florida Keys are surviving on a restricted highway, weight limits on repaired bridge sections, single-lane alternating traffic on the worst stretches. The wind destroyed what was in its path. The water, the heat, the mold, the collapse, and the displacement are still running through the city a month later. Miami survived as a metropolitan region, but portions of the city were not merely flooded, they were physically erased.